Philip
Fergus.
Your full name is Philip, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It is, okay. You weren't christened
Right.
Phil.
I'm actually Philip Daniel Brian Price. And when they read that out of my graduation, someone laughed. I understand.
So at that moment, you're like, I must become a doctor. Dr. Phil.
That was, I think, my undergraduate graduation. Yes, someone definitely laughed.
It's a lot of names. Almost. I'm Fergus Stephen Thomas Crawley.
So and my the same amount.
My dad's name is Stephen Thomas Crawley. So
Yeah.
I now feel like I have to call my child
Just keep adding them on.
Stephen Thomas Crawley, yeah. Until there are no
12 generations down the line, it's just like a list.
Yeah, everyone's cackling at their graduation. If universities are even a thing anymore by that point, Phil, we'll cast us hold. We've got derailed before we've even began. This podcast is about what we believe, with enormous bias, of course, what the ultimate fitness testing protocol would be. And I'm of the opinion that there is nothing that exists in and of itself that does that, because to test fitness across the board, you have to test across different individual disciplines. So it'd be easy to say High Rocks or CrossFit, which I guess there would be a case to be made for as a blend of those. But I think, would you agree that the best way to test an individual's capacity in the energy system spectrum would be to test those components individually, and then perhaps with a blended component too? Or would you prefer a blended approach?
I mean, the easy option is to say you've got endurance and you've got strength, and you want to have a good overarching idea of how someone's fit is based on those two domains. Within those domains, you're going to have for endurance, for example, you're going to have long distance and more sprint based. So let's say that's a continuum there that you want to kind of cover. And then with the strength based stuff, you've got maximal strength, you've got let's call it power based exercises, and then you've probably got the more dynamic high velocity based stuff. So you could say that's a sprint. So you could easily say that's one continuum, and you've gone from like heavy strength to more power based to more sprinting to more, and then you start getting into the endurance side of things, and you start to increase the distance from there. So you could always try and hit many components of that continuum to get an overarching idea of how fit that person is.
That's how I'd approach doing it, I think. And interestingly, I've had people comment or questions asked recently on a lot more of the velocity or power-based stuff as an interest point, like max vertical or max broad jump, or these sort of more traditional, I guess, Americanized testing components that are more commonly tested over in the States versus they are in mainland Europe as components of an athlete's fitness. So if at one end of the spectrum you've got a max power test or a max velocity test, and then at one end of the spectrum you've got a max endurance test, there's a lot that sits beneath that as a component of fitness. And then the interesting thing is you've got the human that sits at the middle of that, their robustness, their tolerance for discomfort, their ability to perform under pressure, all of the humanized elements of fitness or performance that I think are often missed in this discussion. So I'm going to make this a little bit more binary for us and make our lives very difficult. 6 weeks, 6 tests. What would we want to test?
One test a week? Or
one test a week. So let's call it a league table. Let's create something here. So yeah, you've got week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You've got test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Saturday mornings, spectators, high pressure, prize money on the line, the ultimate athlete. What are we going to make those 6 tests? And I guess the question is, how do we spread out that continuum of fitness in a way that covers all bases? And it's a very open-ended question, isn't it, Phil? So if you were to, I think the easiest way to start, I think, is what do we want the max power output test to be?
I think there's going to be an element of bias here. You think power is the rate of doing work, so high power output sports would tend to be sort of sprint cycling, rowing. However, from a typical sort of like explosive strength style, which often gets conflated with power,
Yep.
people would lean into sort of weightlifting or even a vertical jump.
Yeah.
Which, if you look at power, quite often a body weight vertical jump is where they get the highest amount of power.
Yep.
You'd think like, you start adding load to counter movement jump with a barbell on your back. You think like, I'll add a bit more load, that will increase the power, but actually it starts to go down just because it completely limits your ability to move quicker. Maybe it's my bias, but I would lean towards having the weightlifting side and maybe some form of jump. And then I would go into, is that my bias?
And would it be max strength in an Olympic weightlifting setting, or moving a set weight for max velocity?
What, like a power clean where you're measuring like
The speed
barbell?
it moved, yeah. Because there's merit to both, isn't there, at that end of the spectrum?
There is. I think if you did something like we're just looking at the barbell movement, you could probably lean it towards just a power clean. From a skill point of view, it's easier to learn than all of the lifts. So you could go that direction. I guess are we looking at tests of fitness that are popular with everyone, that people can have a rough idea of what is good, what is bad, because there's lots of data out there because they are individual sports? Or we're thinking, let's look at the training quality we want to develop, and then we're going to remove all of that stuff and just focus on that quality. So you could have, because then max strength could be max isometric mid-thigh pull, which is boring to watch if you're thinking making this a spectator sport. But, you're taking away this.
I like this discussion. We're refining our own thought process before we make our opinions, which I think is an underutilized skill in the modern world. And important to mention at this point, by the way, if anyone has their own inputs or wants to share their opinion on the pondering that we're currently doing, please do share it in the comments. I think it has to be a balance of understood and conventional testing to determine an outcome. So my head is going to it's a choice between ollie lifting or vert. My head is going to vert because it keeps the Americans happy. And personally, it's something I think I'm really bad at because it's not something I train specifically. So it would give me an opportunity to develop that in a really measurable and fun way to see how much progress I could make and see how much explosive power I could generate. Whereas ollie lifting is more limited by technique than it is expression of power.
There's a huge technique component that you've got to learn over 10 years to be competent.
Okay. I think therefore I'm far end of the spectrum is vert jump. It's a very boring weekend of testing that one, but it's there. This is the things will build momentum. People will wait for week 6. So I think vertical jump.
But I've seen quite a lot of engaging content around people developing the vertical jump. Yeah. Almost making it, I guess they're linking it towards jumping ability in jump-based sports like basketball. And it's obviously a test in the NFL Combine, so people are quite familiar with it. So that whole idea of like an incredible vert is quite appealing to a lot of people. Yeah. Depends if you go standing or if you go approach.
I like approach. But then again,
it would look cooler.
It would look cooler, yeah.
Do you remember slam ball? Is it called slam ball, where it's like the basketball on the trampolines?
No.
After this, I will show you.
Slam ball.
Slam ball. It was. Do you remember that channel?
I bet that was sponsored by Monster Energy back in the day.
No, this was before that time.
If
that was around, it might still be now, but that was class.
Slam ball. Do you want to play some slam ball?
Do you remember the channel Trouble?
No, that might be you're old.
I'm
you're old,
starting
Phil.
to get really old.
Yeah, I'm gonna show my age, and call you Unc, which I only recently just realised. It was told doesn't mean uncle, it means uncool.
Really?
Which made me feel like even more of an Unc. Or some Gen Zs have taken the piss out of me, and now I'm regurgitating information that was wrong in the hope that this would happen, and I feel like an idiot. So, either way, we're both too old to use these terms, Phil. But slam ball sounds fun.
I'm not going to use it.
Okay, so
make me older if I use it.
Yeah, it would do.
Ironically.
Unk saying unk makes unk more unk. Interesting. It's a vertical approach. Max vert approach jump. I think ticks a lot of the boxes to be commonly enough understood and is a good enough test of an expression of explosive power. And you can measure yourself against people in different sports as well, which I think is good, because obviously the more spread across different disciplines you become, the more of a compromise you have to accept versus the elites in those individual sports. That is how physiological adaptation works.
Yeah.
There is a compromise everywhere.
Well, in this case, you're training for 6 separate things.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be a trade-off, regardless of the whole strength, endurance, compromising each other.
Yeah.
6 separate things. So there's going to be a trade-off.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so next, is this where we get into sort of Wingate testing level, or is that still a little bit too power biased for you?
Depends on the metric. Because if we're going to lean into the whole, we are familiar with lots of data out there, so people can do that comparison to see where they are against the elites. Like you thinking 6-second Wingate test, obviously that's going to very high power output.
Yeah.
Versus the 30-second. Or
I'd be leaning more towards the 30 at this point, I think.
But you're taking peak from that, because you might get peak from 6 seconds anyway. So
But
the
then
rest of
peak's more like the vertical approach jump, isn't it? Oh, this is fun. Maybe a 400 meters? Or is that then to aerobic? Aerobic's more middle of the that's the next ring in the ladder, isn't it?
Yeah. We're heading that direction.
Or would we make that a mile? Because then that's kind of bang in the middle of aerobic whilst also demanding sustained speed output.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It depends, because I know we've got podcasts on VO2 Max at some point today.
Yep.
But they say you kind of hit roughly peak VO2 Max in like the 3 mile.
Okay.
I hope I've got that right. I'm sure it's around that area. So if you're thinking about, okay, like as like an intermediate distance, that could be a good one. And it's similar to 5K, I guess, which is people know a lot about. But 3K, 3 miles, I am wrong. It's 3K.
3K.
I'm wrong. It's 3K. So kind of like a sprint 3K, it's typically what you'd get hit around like peak VO2 max. Whereas if you go faster than that, you're starting to reach speeds where like you're going to fail because of anaerobic reserves and fatigue rather than it being generated from the aerobic system, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 3K time trial.
Yeah.
But then again, we've probably missed a step here, actually, where we probably want a top-end strength expression in between the top-end power expression and the 3K time trial.
Yeah.
Okay, so making progress, Phil. We have max vert with an approach jump. Week 1. Week 2, powerlifting total. No, super total is my suggestion.
So you're going, well, imagine that. You got 1 jump week 1 and then you come to week 2, you're like 5 lifts. Oh.
Yeah, super total. So squat, bench, deadlift, clean and jerk, snatch. It has there's enough technique in there to demand the skill acquisition, but there's not so much technique or technique under fatigue that unless someone had a really bad day, they would miss the ballpark of where their max output availability is.
Part of me wouldn't, like I love Olympic weightlifting, but if it wasn't there as a super total, we just did a powerlifting total.
Yeah.
Because the huge power component is covered with the vertical jump, I wouldn't necessarily be upset if we remove that.
Okay.
However, the sports fan in me would love to see that, just because...
Well, everything's a balance, Phil. Everything's a balance.
Because I know powerlifting is seen as a simpler skill, but anyone involved with powerlifting know how much of a skillful sport it is.
The repeatability of the movement pattern that you've refined and drilled over years is very skillful. Very skillful. Especially with things like sumo deadlift. Like when you see a proper sumo pull by, I mean, there's these 82 kilo guys that are like 190 kilo bench, 190 kilo squat, 130 kilo bench, opening deadlift, 310. You're like, what? And then you just see them step up to the bar and everything just looks, they're just like pistons. It's just like a machine's come together because of that skill acquisition over time, but it doesn't look as skillful as Olympic weightlifting does. I'm the exact same as you. I think it is covered in the vert, but also I think it would make it more entertaining because it covers both. It covers both conventional strength sports that way. Strongman's missed, but I think strongman becomes too technique dependent to be a raw expression of strength. Things like Atlas stones take a lot of practice to get used to versus being a really good measure of that person's ability to apply power to an object. I love strongman. I think it's the best strength sport out there for overall development, but I think in this case, I'd keep it more binary, which would be a super total. So maybe the compromise is, as sports fans and enjoyers of fitness, it should logically be a powerlifting total for the sake of sustainability over 6 weeks, but we would like to see a super total because we're paying for the tickets.
And in terms of strongman, like, there's going to be some casualties in terms of sports that we'd love to see more in this whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of them. And maybe just because it's called strongman, you think, well, it's got to be involved because we want to see how strong these people are. But, I mean, you know, strongmen are hitting those world record deadlifts, aren't they?
Yeah.
So they're involved.
They are involved. They are involved.
They're going to be pretty good.
We're not being
when it comes
exclusive
to
here. I don't want to be exclusive in any way. That's kind of the whole challenge of this. And somebody might make an argument that 6 isn't enough. It should be 8. It should be 10. It should be 12. But I chose 6 to challenge us and force us to come to conclusions today, Phil. Okay, so we have, to repeat again for our lovely listeners at home, we have max vert with an approach jump. We have a super total. We then have a 3K time trial on the track for spectator value. Or would you say not on a track? You're pondering something. What are you pondering, Phil?
No, track is fine. We need something that's measurable because lots of people are going to do this so that they can compare against each other.
Yeah.
So we need to try and keep it standardized for each bit. So I think the track is fine.
No carbon shoes.
Unless I do. I want to bounce along because I've got zero stiffness.
Yeah. Unless you're really undertrained, in which case you're allowed them. No, okay. So standardization. Athletics rules. Yeah. 3K time trial. Yeah, okay.
Trying to think. The only reason is you could easily go 3 strength power sports and even have one of those being like a 100-meter sprint, or it's like the 6-second Wingate.
Yep.
And we look at peak power, and then we look at 3 different distances in the endurance side. I'm worried about what I'm missing out. The reason being, I'm thinking like, say you took, that's a ridiculous way of looking at it. No, that's dreadful.
Oh, watching the academics' brain work is fascinating. I just say the things that come into my head. You're so much more measured.
Shall we go to the far end of like week 6 so we can
no,
move it back in?
Yeah, I like this. Okay, so you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say something that I think will surprise a lot of people. But I think if we're balancing sports fans' conventional understanding in a way to measure against what people already understand, my current logic is, as we've already described, week 4 is a high rocks.
Ooh. Wow, okay.
Because it's a strength endurance. It's a strength endurance and muscular endurance demand. That's effective. There is not a top end strength component within it. It is very endurance biased. And therefore, in testing the individual, there would be a direct measure of the cost of being strong enough with your super total versus, or not strong enough, but how strong you were with your super total versus your high rocks time and where that trade-off is. But also it's a great way to blend an endurance discipline with some fatigue and low skill movements to really test how the individual performs when under pressure or under fatigue in that sort of strength endurance or sustained threshold output setting. Or you could say a half marathon. But I think there's things further along the way, the endurance spectrum that we can put in that would make the half marathon a bit boring. And I think, again, because it's a professional sport now, it's all over the world, and participation is very high, and it's a great test of strength endurance, and is low skill and accessible to a lot of people. I think it would be very fun to work that in there. And if someone was training for this, how do they concurrently train for all of these things? And how do they leverage the training for the 3K, for the high rocks? How do they leverage the training for the top-end endurance element that we haven't yet chosen, versus the compromise and the speed work that they have to do for that high rocks performance, for example? So, curveball, but that's my thoughts.
What high rocks is, I think, good at is it's probably one of the only sports which it's an endurance event, but because of the moving between stations, you get changes in how the body then adapts to each one. So if you're running, blood flow predominantly going through the legs, then all of a sudden you're straight into the skio, which is the first event. So that blood flow has to be redistributed from the legs back up to the upper body to be able to help with doing the skio. Then you're back running, so it has to be redistributed back. And that's kind of a skill you've got to adapt to. And I mean, from a skill, physiological point of view, from a skill, the body has to learn to be able to do that, because it can't just send blood to every part of the body, because then you lose blood pressure and you have the chance of passing out. So, you know, those that are very good at high rocks, you know, are very good runners from a running point of view and all those qualities, but they're also very good at that, which would also
which is unique to the sport.
Yes,
but is each, like blood shunting and things like that, is not unique to high rocks in and of itself. But having to perform with that as a consideration in your training is a little bit more of a compromise than it is in other sports. Like blood shunting, like a big part of rugby, for example.
Yeah, it would be. But I think the thing with rugby, it's probably more intermittent, bit more rest periods in between to make it like
and it's less predictable, which means it's not as testable as well.
Yeah, so you wouldn't do rugby as like game of sevens for 14 minutes. But yeah, obviously rugby is a good example of that. Tackling, jackling, running, you know, things are moving around. CrossFit is quite good, but it's how that sport is structured is, you can't really include it because it's a bit like strongman. We don't know what kind of events are going to happen in it, and it tries to test everything. So, you know, the inclusion of high rocks would be good if we wanted to test that particular quality, which I can imagine people listening and thinking, oh, why don't you do the max bench press for reps? You're testing muscular endurance. Well, but it's more strength endurance.
You've tested top end strength. So I personally think that is a more conventional expression of how strength is measured than the NFL combine test. And I don't think people would even bring up max bench press reps if it wasn't for the NFL combine.
No, I guess not.
You've been propagandized, haven't you, Pill?
What?
You've been NFL pilled or filled. You've been NFL filled. There we go. That's okay. So, agree? Disagree? Counter argument? Counter suggestion? Again, we haven't figured out what's at the other end of the spectrum, so this is very tough. But I'm enjoying the complexity.
If we're thinking of like blood flow, because I kind of highlighted that as a quality of high rocks, which isn't, they do differently from other sports. If you think of a sport where blood flow has to go to multiple different areas of the body at the same time and maintain that, like, should we include some form of like maybe the 2,000 meter row?
My counter argument to that, this is my massive personal bias. I'm not a fan of ERGs as testing metrics because they mimic sports that are done outside. I mean,
it's definitely a proxy, isn't it?
Which isn't in any way to say that ERGs aren't valuable training tools or a 2K row isn't incredible. It's just that I think, I just like the sporting disciplines as intended rather than the training tools for them. And I think it's because it's become so normalised in the gym setting that you would consider it otherwise, in the same way that you'd never test an Ironman's ability on the bike on a C2 bike.
Mm-hmm.
But because of accessibility, it's become much more popular to do so.
More people doing step tests on CT
But
bikes.
also, the counter argument to that, Fergus, is that we're testing overall athletic fitness here rather than skill and sport specific skill, which means that the ability to row and output power in a rowing boat is very limited by how good at rowing you are, which I am shit at, by the way, just to confirm. Also shit at the 2K row. Yeah, it's really hard. yeah. But I just, again, like one of the reasons I haven't done Hyrox is because I like, well, two reasons. Asthma, can't really breathe indoors. My asthma doesn't like it. Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad.
It is like a sweat box.
Yeah, it's just if it's not like circulation, my asthma does flare up a lot more than in outdoor settings. And two, other than indoor athletics, I think running is an outdoor sport. I'd love to see a Hyrox format where all of the stations are in the middle of a running track and everything's done on a 400-meter track. I'll sign up to that one. Berlin and New York look class because they've got elements of outdoors as well, which are the ones that have made me go, oh, maybe I will sign up. But the ones that are just in big arenas, I've gone, there's outdoor fitness elements in there, and I like doing my fitness outdoors, which is personal preference. But again, I think... yeah, the overall blood flow demands of a 2K row. But then again, would that, from a VO2 max point of view, physiologically speaking, sit somewhere closer to the 3K time trial than it would the Hyrox as a comparison? Because a 3K, I can imagine 2K row world record, for example, is probably around, I can imagine it's under 5 minutes.
I can't remember. I don't know off the top of my head.
So it'd be what, like I can imagine a really 115 per 500, 4 of those. I don't know.
I'm not sure about 115, but
is 115 crazy quick?
Yeah.
4 of them would be a big ask, but so I can imagine it's in the 5 to 6
we'll
minute
be
range.
straight on online after
we'll
this.
We'll be on c2ergforum.com. But again, no, this curiosity is why we're having this discussion in an open forum rather than saying this is what we believe, because I figuring this out is tough. And again, you'll have people that say, oh, decathletes do this, but they don't cover top end strength. And what's the strength requirements to be good at decathlon? There is no sport that exists, and I don't think there ever can be a sport that exists that tests fitness across an entire spectrum unless it is a league table of individual sports tested over a period of time. And that's why this is a complex discussion and why we are pondering at length.
Well, I thought the decathlon and heptathlon they're trying to test a variety of different qualities, but based on track and field events.
Yeah.
So that limits what
I have seen in forums a lot of people go, oh, the most well-rounded athletes in the world are decathletes, which I think is true in a track and field setting. But I mean, I think Aussie rules or rugby league or rugby unions probably, as an expression of fitness across the board, probably more. They cover more basis, I would argue. But that's not what this discussion is about. That's a discussion for another time, Phil.
What was I going to say? I mean, with the row, if we go down the whole, we'd like something where there's a lot of data that we can at least have things that are comparable.
Yeah.
I mean, Hyrox does it because you've got a lot of, it's a measured course that a lot of people have done, so you have a lot of data and you'll be able to create some kind of league table. But you've got the indoor rowing championships, all on ergs, so there's loads of data on that and benchmarks, and you'd be able to do that with that one as well, from like a benchmark type of discussion.
Okay, so we need to agree, Phil. What do you think? Hyrox or 2K row?
Can we park it and then move on to the next?
Okay, fine. So I've got 2 ideas here. So I think 5 and 6, this is grim, and people are going to think this is ridiculous, and I acknowledge that. But I think number 5 should be a very well understood test of aerobic endurance at a level that is really quite tough. So I think number 5 is an Ironman.
Cool. Where's 6 going then? If we're going down that continuum.
And number 6 is the spine race. Specifically, actually, the winter spine race or something of that ilk. A multi-day outdoors single stage ultra where there is a shitload of durability and mental resilience testing as well. Because whilst that is not an intrinsic component of physiological fitness, I think that so much of sporting performance is ascribed to the individual's mental capacity and ability to perform under pressure, perform under fatigue, perform under variables not going their way, that is a quality that should be tested in a setting that puts them under pressure that they cannot control. Every other test that we've given is largely in a controlled setting, but so much of sport is not controlled that I think there should be something in there that's just completely rash. And look, if someone walks the whole thing and it takes them 2 weeks, that's how long it took them. But if somebody DNFs after 40 miles because they got their kit wrong, then that's showing an experience and a certain type of fitness that is more and more popular these days. It's not that these things aren't popular. Ultra running, 100 miles, multi-day ultras, things like that, they're not niche anymore. That is a common part of fitness. And you get the argument, oh, what's more impressive, a fast marathon or a 100 miler? Neither's more impressive. They're different things. And I would argue that the Ironman tests the metrics of endurance. Something like the spine race or a multi-day ultra in a harsh setting tests the person with endurance. So, does that help or hinder our fourth event discussion?
So it depends what we're trying to. Yeah, it depends what we're trying to test. It's quite cool that I think we're thinking differently. Because what you're right is a lot of these things don't test certain things regarding sport, like the mental side of things and the mental resilience of that. Because it's tests of fitness, I personally wouldn't look to try and chase that. They're gonna, if you're doing a 2K row, for example, there's a mindset element of being able to like be in the hurt locker for however long that's going to take.
Yep. Which we've established is between 5 and 6 minutes, roughly.
Yeah. But I probably wouldn't look to, and this might be just the scientists where it's like you're trying to standardize everything. But I probably wouldn't have the spine race because so many things could go wrong, and I feel like I wouldn't be testing it. Whereas the Ironman distance triathlon could be a good option for maybe 6 or an ultra when you're thinking of that.
That's what I thought you'd say.
Yeah,
yeah.
Which,
and there's a lot of logic to suggest that is the peak of the endurance spectrum, because you're not physiologically a best effort Ironman versus a best effort ultra. You're not going beyond that person's aerobic abilities. You're going beyond their ability to sustain that once you factor in all of the variables at play, which you are correct, does not test fitness as an expression or a metric in and of itself. But I believe I've made my point as to why I think there's merit to doing that at the top end, because how a person responds when variables don't go their way is a different kind of hurt locker and a different kind of problem solving, and it isn't just chewing the stem. It's figuring things out under fatigue and having to keep utilizing fitness to move forward, which is I think that's a bias. It's definitely a bias. But also I'm quite liking the idea of someone that's got a really sick vert jump and could also do a multi-day ultra in that sort of setting, because that's just so opposed that just makes my brain go, wow, that person's an animal. That's very cool. And if I had a really good ultra, or I was really well trained for the spine, for example, I can tell you for free that my vert jump would be pathetic. I think it'd be like a 3-day-old pygmy goat jumping around like 3 inches off the floor. It'd be really quite disappointing. It's like, he didn't even reach the bottom spinny thing on the vert jump. That's quite embarrassing. So it'd be very interesting to try and train those simultaneously, accepting that would be a compromise across both.
We might have created a new podcast title, because you could do greatest test of fitness over 6 weeks. Yeah. Greatest sporting event over 6 weeks.
Goddamn.
Because you're right. Imagine if you're going to test someone for a vertical jump
are we
some crazy multi-day endurance
Are we
event.
testing the individual, or are we testing the individual's abilities? Like, it was the same thing, but you know what I mean? It's like, are we testing the individual as a human being or as a robot? It's kind of the way of framing this in a little bit, isn't it? And obviously they're not a robot, but they just perform at max effort under all conditions all the time. But that's why I would argue that there should be a real human mental resilience component. But I do also simultaneously acknowledge that is not a good test of someone's fitness metrics on paper. So if you put Ironman at 6, what would be 5 and what would be 4? And we do need to tidy this up because we've got other podcasts to record.
I think I want to feel I'm biasing towards running events, but you could go like very long, the triathlon, then you could go something around the hour mark. I mean, it could be a half marathon, or, I mean, 10K isn't going to be anywhere near the hour mark, but it's kind of that area. And then you could either go the shorter event, which is still kind of like you're in the like severe energy domain. So maybe that'll be the row. It could be 400, 800 meters, or the mile, that type of thing. That's probably where I would lean towards. It's almost like you've got the day event, you've got something that would take under maybe between an hour and 2 hours, and then something which is like Hurt Locker type of running event or endurance event, like a 2K row. That's probably what, it might sound a bit boring, but I feel that would test certain abilities.
So does that change your overall order?
That would remove testing for all those physiological endurance discussions we had around high rocks.
Yeah. So
but would I get that if I had the...
It's an events day rather than... okay, so it's taken... How about decathlon? Throw in a decathlon.
I mean, that's a lot of...
There's a lot of recovery each week here. This is a pretty grim 6 weeks, but...
I mean, as a spectacle, that would be pretty cool. There's some... I can't remember which one has javelin.
No, me neither. I think it's heptathlon.
Heptathlon has the javelin.
But
I need to improve my track and field.
Yeah, no, my general knowledge of track and field needs work. That's fun. I enjoy this. Okay, so you've got 5 to fill. You're missing one, or can we extend them out? So 1,
I think
vertical approach jump. 2, super total. 3, 3K time trial.
No, it's too similar to...
Yeah, that was my thinking.
Now, let's go to like the repeatability side of things. Let's have that high rocks there.
Yeah.
Then we go to the...
I've done it.
The short event where you're like utilising your battery that's really, really limited. So that could be, I'd argue, anything between 4 and the mile, 400 and the mile, would satisfy what I'm thinking.
So you're putting that after the high rocks?
Yes.
And that's partly because you're leveraging this fatigue that comes from it?
No. I'd probably have that first, then the high rocks.
Okay. So 3 and 4 we're in agreement on. So 3K time trial.
And that's
or
the hour event.
Yeah.
Then I'll probably go something which might be the...
Or maybe it's that, then it's a marathon or an Ironman 70.3, and then it's 100 miles on the track or something like that. Because that's a running component. And that does have if you remove... Okay, maybe this keeps you happy. 100 miles on the track removes... all of the variables that would go with the spine that don't test fitness, there would be enough elements of pacing, resilience, grit in 100 miles on the track, but you would not be able to hide from whether you did or didn't have the biomechanical robustness and aerobic ability to get through that or not.
Okay.
Which then means, working backwards, 100 miles on the track, Ironman 70.3, or marathon. I think the fact that you've got swimming and biking in there ticks those boxes nicely. Yeah. Do you have the skill or don't you?
Yeah.
High rocks, pro or open weights?
Pro.
Yeah, thought so. Just confirming. Number 3. Number 3 would be...
We're looking at that short
so
event.
3K, mile, that sort of range.
Yeah. 3K
gun
mile
to your head,
or...
Gun to head, you're choosing...
I mean, fuck it. You could go... Maybe this is where we get the row in.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to abandon that and just go to this. Yeah. Okay. So 2K row.
Yeah.
2K row. Okay, I'm with you on that. I think that's good. And because we've got the running element, in the other bits too, which can be that can be tested. Number 2, super total.
I'm just questioning myself. Okay, go on.
2, super total. 1.
That's fine, I think. The where I'm confused is this, because I reckon if we had the 2K row, people would complain. I mean, it's ours, so it doesn't matter. But people would complain that we haven't got anything which looks at top end speed enough. Whereas a 400 meter, it's not 100 meter sprint, but like it's pretty fast.
It's
fast, honestly.
But if you're good at an 800, so is an 800.
Yeah.
So I think a 3K time trial or a 2K row, you are limited on physiological ability. There's a point where your lungs will not be able to sustain your legs. Whereas I mean that can obviously happen with the 400 and 800 as well. But I think just the time spent. Yeah, I'd probably go 400 or 800 for number 3.
Mm-hmm. Cool, let's agree with that.
All right.
Yeah.
We're done.
Yay!
We did it. We did it.
Got there.
Okay, number 1.
It's the jump.
So, let's set this up nicely so it can be nice and succinct. We have, at great intellectual demand, of course, and great cognitive decline, embarrassingly so, in fact, we believe that the ultimate test of an athlete across 6 weeks, 6 events, 1 test per week is vertical jump with an approach. Week 1. Week 2, super total. Week 3, 800 meters.
Say it, 400, 800? 800. We call
800 meters. Number 4, high rocks with pro weights. Number 5, Ironman 17.3. Number 6, 100-mile run at the track.
Mm-hmm. That would be your ultra. You could just say that is our 100k ultra.
Does it need to be 100 miles or could it be 50?
I guess
we've got the clip. So we've got the clip there, Phil. For any, you'll have seen that clip on social media, guys. So we've summarised that now. So now we can finalise this discussion. 50, 100 miles, quick fire, because we are under pressure here and performing horribly, Phil, in terms of time.
I think you could have either, because both is a huge component around durability.
The 100 mile would be more entertaining.
You think so?
So is this commercial hat or is this scientist hat on?
What? Because you think by the end of it, it'd be
people would be so destroyed after this horrendous 6 weeks they've had prior to it as well. Yeah. I mean, getting to the start line of the 100 miles is pretty hard work. I'm not going to lie. I genuinely think, as long as the person manages their output sensibly.
I think 100. Sorry.
You think 100?
Yeah.
So do I. But I actually think this as a testing protocol is possible. There would be a big compromise across the board in the ability, but I don't think that doing this testing protocol across a 6 week period, you would actually be too battered. You do nothing in the week between other than just basic skill work.
Yeah.
But I actually don't think we've created an unachievable thing there. Not that I'm going to do it anytime soon, of course. And not that this was anything other than a hypothetical discussion that I very much enjoyed, but we've covered it off. So, the ultimate athlete, the best testing protocol in the world has just been discovered. Mm-hmm. Well done, Phil. Great work. Great work. Good game.
Stuff.
Good game.
Good game.
Again, to reiterate, please do share your thoughts. You've watched us process a lot of information in real time, and I'm glad that we did. And I'm glad that we didn't come in with preconceived ideas, because there's a lot of things I'd never considered before. That was good fun. Okay, we're now going to talk about everything you need to know about VO2 Max. So tune into that next time.
See you then.